Elon Musk, Cries revelando secreto a Black Beggar u cambio su vida a mexicano. No one expected this. Not la ciudad, not las cámaras aflascientes, no siquiera John Carter mismo. The tech wizard, the billionaire genius from Manhattan, known for his cold boardroom victories and public smile, was sitting on a freezing sidewalk next to a homeless woman. And that night, everything twisted in a way nobody saw coming. John's expensive coat barely kept out the chill as he shifted beside her. Mary, a quiet name stitched with scars and silence. The streetlights flickered above, throwing shadows that danced like ghosts across the pavement. He didn't plan to talk to her. After hours locked in his skyscraper apartment, staring at empty walls, dread had clawed at him too deep to fight alone. So, when he saw her shiver beside the trash can, something inside cracked. He sat down. Mary's voice was rough, like gravel mixed with warmth. She shared stories of broken promises, lost battles, and nights spent beneath the unyielding sky. John, surprisingly, opened up too, his voice low, trembling like his hands. He spilled fears nobody ever heard, the crushing loneliness that no amount of money could fix, the exhaustion of pretending, the pressure of holding up his mask while his heart fought silent wars. It was in that raw moment, when breath mingled like smoke in cold air, that Mary mentioned a boy, a friend John had betrayed long ago, a friend who was everything John feared he'd lost: honesty, love, even hope. Her eyes, filled with an agonizing mix of grief and forgiveness, stared straight into his soul. "I'm Sarah's sister," she whispered. The name buried deep in John's memories. Sarah, the girl he wanted but never had. The choice he made years ago, a choice that had shadowed every success since. The wound he covered with steel and smile. John's chest tightened, his breath hitched. She wasn't just a stranger on the street. She was a living reminder of his biggest failure. The past he ran from like it was a ghost haunting every corner of his life. But before he could even start to grasp it, a sudden sound made his skin crawl. A sharp, deliberate step from the dark. Nearby, a man with a camera and a smirk prowled like a vulture. An infamous journalist, hungry for the cracks in John's perfect armor. Someone ready to rip his secrets wide open, to drag his shame into the glaring light of public scandal. John's pulse hammered in his ears. The city, so loud just before, seemed dead silent. He looked at Mary. At the truth, at the lie of the life he built. There, on a cold New York street, under flickering lamps and watchful eyes, John Carter had to make a choice: to drop the armor, to face the shattering truth, or to buckle back, to hide behind the fame, the fortune, the empty mask. The approaching footsteps stopped. A shadow lengthened. His heart froze. What would come next? Redemption or ruin? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this comunidad. Your participación makes all the diferencia. Let's interact. John's heart froze, the air thick with tension. He watched Mary, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. The shadow crept closer, and the sound of footsteps echoed, snapping him back to reality. The journalist was here. John fought the urge to hide, but everything ground to a halt. "Do you know him?" Mary whispered, her voice trembling as she flicked her gaze toward the advancing figure. "He's dangerous." John swallowed hard, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Just a reporter. He won't." Before he could finish, a muffled shout erupted from behind them, slicing through the silence. A nearby couple, oblivious to the charged atmosphere, had stumbled upon a commotion that ignited the street. A clash of shouts, blurring into chaos. Then suddenly, a loud crash shattered the night. A glass bottle flew through the air, smashing against a lamppost. John barely had time to process the noise before the chaos erupted fully. People screamed, scattering like leaves in the wind, while the journalist lunged forward, capturing every moment on camera. In that moment, the world trembled. John felt a surge of protectiveness for Mary. "We need to get out of here," he shouted, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away, eyes filled with a haunting knowledge he didn't understand. Just then, Mary's expression shifted, her gaze locking onto something in the distance. "No, it can't be," she gasped. John turned and his breath hitched in his throat. Emerging from the shadows, a familiar figure stepped forward, tall and imposing. It was a man who had once been his closest friend, the one he had betrayed years ago. "This is unexpected," the man said, his voice a mix of bitterness and amusement. John's world felt like it was crumbling. "What are you doing here?" Panic seized him as memories flooded back. The arguments, betrayal, the paths their lives had taken since that day. "I'm here for you, John," the man said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "To remind you of everything you lost." The journalist seized the moment, snapping photos, eyes wild with glee as he caught John's face twisted in shock. Mary squeezed her eyes shut, anguish etched into every wrinkle of her face. "You don't know what he's really like." "What? You think you can protect him?" The man laughed, cold and cruel. "You're both just puppets, dancing for the spotlight." John felt bile rise in his throat. The truth of his past spilled out into the open. But what hit him harder was Mary's connection to it all. "What do you mean?" he demanded, voice raw. "Did I never tell you?" the man said, muscles coiling like a predator about to strike. "I've been waiting for the right moment. Mary isn't just your unlucky beggar. She's your sister." John's heart thudded in his chest, the warmth slipping from his body, like a punch to the gut. The weight of those words crashed down around him, a tidal wave of shock and disbelief. Mary, his sister! No, it can't be true. The world spun. Gasps filled the air. The crowd, once agitated, was now hushed. Uncertainty rippling through the onlookers. "John, listen," Mary started, tears welling up in her eyes. But the man cut her off. "Don't you get it? It's all a game, and you've already lost." The icy realization gripped John, trapping him in a cage of betrayal and horror. Everything he thought he knew was crumbling. He wanted to scream, to deny, to fight back. But all he could do was stand there in stunned silence. The crowd held its breath. John's heart raced. What would happen now? What secrets would surface? Everything had changed. John's heart froze. The looming shadow represented more than just an intruder. It was the very embodiment of his deepest fears. The journalist's smirk glinted maliciously in the speckled light, ready to tear apart the fragile moment of honesty he had shared with Mary. Before he could think, Mary reached out, grasping his arm tightly. "Don't let him ruin this," she whispered, her voice pleading. Panic surged through him. The urge to retreat, to hide, clawed at his chest. But something kept him rooted. Then, from behind the journalist, another figure materialized. A woman, disheveled but fierce, long dark hair trailing down her back like a storm cloud. She stepped forward, eyes narrowed, and every inch of her screamed a protective urgency. "What do you want with them?" she demanded. Her voice steady and strong, cutting through the night. The journalist flinched at her tone, momentarily caught off guard. "Just a story, ma'am. A rich man's dirty secrets. Can you blame me? The public loves a good fall from grace." Before John could react, the woman whipped around to face him. "Do you want this to happen? To go back to that life, hiding behind the facade?" John stumbled back, his thoughts racing. "Who are you?" Someone who knows, someone who was there. Her intensity was magnetic, pulling him in, and his confusion morphed into fear. He caught a fleeting glimpse of recognition in her eyes, but couldn't place it. The journalist, sensing hesitation, seized the moment. "They're just looking for their next meal. What's the truth, Mr. Carter? When was the last time you shared your fortune?" Mary's grip tightened painfully. John felt the heat of shame wash over him, drowning out the chill of the night. But before he could respond, the woman continued, her voice rising. "You think you can escape? You think throwing money at problems will fix everything? They have to know." His heart raced. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, behind the clatter of footsteps, a loud crash echoed as a car swerved into view, tires screeching. John spun around, his heart leaping. The vehicle skidded to a halt, and the crowd burst into chaos. "Get back!" someone shouted, pushing through the throng. In that moment, as headlights pierced the darkness, John caught another glimpse. The passenger in the car had a familiar face. A face from his past. Young, angry, and full of betrayal. The world tilted. John felt faint. It was Alex, the friend he hadn't seen in years, the one he betrayed. The man whose quiet faith in him turned to ash the day he chose ambition over loyalty. "John!" Alex yelled, voice full of pain. "You think you can run forever? Look at what you've become." John staggered back, every word hitting him like a physical blow. This was more than just a night on the sidewalk. It was the unraveling of every choice he'd made. The truth flooding back like a tidal wave, swallowing him whole. The city fell silent, the air thick with tension. Mary held on tighter, her eyes darting between John and Alex. Strangers whispered, faces pale, caught in a web of unexpected confrontation. John was trapped. Here was the moment he dreaded. Old wounds laid bare. All his wealth, all his power crumbled before him. As the reality of his choices settled, darkness closed in around him, drowning out the reactions of the watching crowd. The weight of the past was heavy, and he couldn't breathe. What would happen next? Redemption or ruin? And who else would be swept into this storm? John staggered back, his spots racing. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, as Alex's words ricocheted around him. You think you can run forever? Look at what you've become! Suddenly the crowd held its breath. People exchanged looks of confusion and disbelief. Mary's grip tightened on his arm, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and understanding. "I'm sorry, John," she said, her voice trembling. "I never wanted you to find out like this." But before John could absorb her words, a chilling silence descended. It was as if the world paused. The headlights from the car erupted into the night, illuminating everyone caught in its glow. Then, in a horrifying instant, another sound sliced through the stunned stillness. A loud bang, like a gunshot. People screamed. The crowd erupted into chaos, bodies pushing and shoving to escape the unseen threat. John's heart raced as he instinctively shielded Mary behind him. "What was that?" he shouted, panic clawing at his chest. The journalist dropped his camera, eyes wide, mouth agape. His smirk faded into a mask of shock. People screamed, the noise of panic swelling in a tidal wave. But amidst the terror, John's gaze was drawn back to the car. The passenger door flung open. Alex stumbled out, clutching his arm, blood seeping through his fingers. "Alex!" John shouted, fear injecting urgency into his voice. "Get back! Get back!" Alex yelled, his face twisted in pain, his other hand raised shakily toward the crowd. "He's dangerous!" Mary gasped beside him, her expression darkening. "We need to go. Now!" But it was too late. Before anyone could comprehend, a black figure emerged from the shadows, tall, menacing, and shrouded in darkness. He stepped into the harsh light, a smile creeping over his face, eyes glinting like daggers. It was the man from John's past, the one who had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Look who finally showed up to the party," he taunted, voice cold and mocking. He pointed at Alex. "Isn't this just delicious? A reunion I never thought I'd see." Alex stumbled back against the car, breathless and furious. "What do you want?" His voice crackled. "Redemption," the man spat. "You think you can all just pretend like none of this matters? You're all just pieces on a chessboard." Mary's expression morphed into realization. "No, this can't be happening." In an instant, the man lunged. The crowd gasped, instinctively pulling back. But before anyone could react, John surged forward, protective instinct taking over. "Stop!" John shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. The ominous figure had slipped something from his pocket, tossing it toward Alex. In that moment, time stretched. An explosion rocked the street, sending a shockwave through the crowd. Screams erupted, crushing John's ears. He shielded Mary, twisting to protect her as people scattered, fear painting their faces. When the dust settled, a single figure lay motionless on the asphalt, the crowd recoiling in horror. And then, all eyes fell on John as he realized what had happened. The man had set off a device, a cruel reminder of everything he had tried to escape. The figure on the ground, the familiar face of his past, the brother he never wanted to face. "Everything's entwined, John," Alex coughed, blood spilling from his lips, eyes clouded with pain. "This is all your fault." John's heart dropped, his breath hitched. The truth spiraled into view. He had run, hiding behind wealth, losing pieces of himself along the way. It was never just a simple betrayal. As the sirens wailed in the distance, a new wave of uncertainty washed over him. The question hung in the air, like smoke. What now? How deep did this betrayal run? Would he lose the last shred of family he hadn't known was still there? His heart froze. The shadow shifted, the journalist's eyes gleaming with delight. But it was the sudden, loud honk of a horn that shattered the moment. A black SUV surged forward, screeching to a halt, inches from John's feet. The journalist turned, eyes widening. The driver's door swung open. A figure emerged that made John's stomach drop. It was Vanessa, his former business partner, the one who vanished from his life after their bitter fallout. Her face now twisted in urgency. She locked eyes with him, then pointed toward the street. Panic radiated from her. "John, get out of here," she shouted, her voice cutting through the night like glass. He blinked, confusion flooding him. Why was she here? Why now? He glanced back at Mary, and the realization hit him like a slap. She was in danger too. Instinct kicked in. He grabbed Mary's wrist, yanking her to her feet, their breaths mingling in a cloud of shock. "We need to go." The journalist closed in, grinning like a predator. "You think you can escape this, Carter?" His voice dripped con malicia. "El mundo está oriento saber la verdad. But en that momento casado es cuando viene el twist." Delante de Vanessa surgió otra figura de las sombras, un hombre alto de alpa. Su cara estaba escondido debajo de un sombrero, que a él, John, se despertó en su lágrima. El voz truncamente male. El que mencionaba a María. Nadie pensaba que se moría. But when Frank was buried alive. "You died." A cold smile cruzó Frank's labios. "Turns out I'm very much alive. You thought you could bury the truth, didn't you?" He stepped closer, and the laughter that tumbled from his mouth sent chills racing down John's spine. "What's it like, John, living with the weight of your own choices?" Time twisted. The street lights flickered, casting long shadows over the three of them. Mary's grip tightened on John's arm, her face pale as she swung between shock and rage. "Why are you here?" John's voice wobbled, caught between disbelief and fear. "Because it's time for you to face the past you've been running from. But I'm not here to ruin you." Frank's eyes glinted with a strange mix of revenge and pity. "I'm here to help." The words stung. "Help? After all this time? John!" Vanessa shouted again, urgency thick in her tone. "We have to go now." The journalist hovered like a hawk, ready to strike. John hesitated, battling between his past and his present, feeling the walls closing in. It was all slipping away. The life he built, the mask he wore, the money that couldn't save him from the ghosts chasing him down. "Why now?" he asked Frank, the weight of betrayal clinging to every syllable. "Why not before?" "Because you need to know what you sacrificed, so you can truly understand what's at stake now." Frank's words sliced like a knife. Panic erupted in John's chest. Was this a trap, or was it a lifeline? "Let's go," he murmured to Mary, pulling her toward the SUV. But as they moved, Frank raised a hand. Wait, there's more I haven't told you. The truth about Sarah, about everything. It's not what you think. And just like that, everything hung in the balance. The night was electric with tension, all eyes on John. Was he ready to unravel the tangled web of his past? Or would he once again turn his back on the truth? The air trembled with unspoken words. His fate loomed ahead. Redemption or ruin awaited. What would he choose? His heart froze. The shadow loomed larger, a dark figure against the splash of flickering streetlights. The journalist stood still, camera poised, eyes eager. But just as John prepared for battle, to defend his carefully crafted image, a loud bang shattered the air. The sudden noise echoed like a gunshot, sending jolts of panic coursing through both John and Mary. The journalist turned, startled. A group of kids, laughing and shouting, had kicked a can. The adrenaline faded, but not before exposing the raw tension. But then the worst happened. A scream ripped through the night. A woman, frantic. Out of the alley burst a young girl, hair wild and eyes wide, dragging another behind her. A boy John recognized. "Please, get him! He needs help!" the girl cried. John's mind spun. It was Tim, the boy he had betrayed. How could this happen? The boy who had taken the fall for him all those years ago. He felt his stomach churn, guilt creeping like vines around his heart. The journalist leaned in closer now, sensing the twist of fate. John's world tilted. Tim, just a kid back then, was now a teenager. Someone dragged into the undertow of John's decisions. His pulse raced. The ache in his chest grew like a tidal wave, crashing against his composure. Mary's expression shifted from concern to a mix of dread and disbelief. "Is that—" Her voice trailed off, eyes darting between John and the boy. "Yes." John's voice cracked, half relief, half horror. "Tim." He scrambled up, abandoning the cold ground, lurching toward the commotion in the alley. I'm fine! Tim shouted. But the tangle of fear in his voice betrayed him. John reached him, eyes wide with disbelief. The boy hadn't changed much, but there was a weariness behind his eyes. Before John could speak, a police siren wailed distantly. Just his luck. His skin prickled at the thought of being exposed, of the world seeing his past wrapped in the boy's pain. The scene spiraled. John felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made, crushing him. He glanced back at Mary, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pity and anger. This would open every wound, expose every lie he had wrapped himself in. He was tired of running. Tim, what happened? John's voice broke through the noise. Tim's gaze met his, and time hung suspended. You did this. I shouldn't have been there. The accusation hit harder than any fist. John's throat tightened. No, that's not. Yes, Tim shouted, desperation swallowing his fear. You left. You didn't care. A crowd had gathered now, whispers flickering like fireflies. The journalist's camera flicked, a predator reloading, ready for the feast. John's mind raced. Underneath the chaos, one truth solidified. Exposing himself meant exposing Tim. The pressure of the decision pressed like a heavy weight. He felt Mary at his back, her breath warm against the winter chill, an unsteady anchor. Suddenly, Mary stepped forward. "Stop! Everyone, stop!" Her voice sliced through the murmur. "We need to talk." John's heart pounded. The last thing he wanted was for Mary to take the spotlight. But the way she stood, resolute, as if making a declaration, was unfamiliar. "What are you doing?" John hissed. "Truth," Mary said firmly, her eyes fierce. "It's time he knows, and everyone else too." The crowd hushed, curiosity twisting their faces. In that moment, John's fate turned. The girl, the past, the boy he had betrayed, all conspired against him. Could truth heal? Or would it shatter everything he tried to build? As Mary took a breath, ready to spill secrets, John felt his world tipping, every thread of safety unraveling. What would she reveal? And at what cost? John's heart froze. The shadow lengthened, cold and heavy, like a weight pressing down on his chest. He could feel sweat trickle between his palms and the tremor in his fingers. The camera clicks echoed, slicing through the night like sharp glass. Mary's warm glance felt like a lifeline, but he could already hear the whispers in the dark. John Carter. The smirk of the journalist lingered, a wolf scenting prey. The glare of his lens caught John's eyes, bright and merciless. Instinct screamed at him to flee, but he was anchored to this moment. It was impossible to escape the pain. "Don't!" John started, his voice faltering. But Mary raised her hand. Something in her gaze was different, intense, fractured. And then, everything twisted again. A scream shattered the night. A gut-wrenching cry, piercing the city's usual noise. "Help!" Oh my God. It was a woman's voice, somewhere nearby, chaotic and full of panic. Shockwaves passed through the crowd, heads turning as everyone's focus peeled away from John and Mary. Mary's expression shifted, eyes wide. "That's my sister," she gasped, looking like she'd seen a ghost. "Your sister?" John asked, his stomach knotting tighter with each word. "But she's—" Before he could finish, the crowd surged toward the sound, drawn by a force greater than curiosity. In the chaos, John's mind raced. Sarah, the sister who had slipped through the cracks of his mind, now bursting back into view like a horror movie unfolding. He stood, driven by an impulse he couldn't understand. He followed Mary as she pushed through the horde, desperation in every step. Heart pounding, he tried to catch up, an overwhelming tide of humanity pulling them forward, closer to the noise. Then they saw her. Lying on the sidewalk, clutching her shoulder, was Sarah. Blood pooled around her, dark against the concrete. An open wound that painted a grim picture of reality. Panic flushed through John, blurring the lines of past decisions and present fears. "Why were you in that alley?" Mary cried, rushing to her sister's side, shaking with each word. "What happened?" Sarah looked up, a whisper escaping her lips, choking on pain as she met John's eyes. You couldn't save me, could you?" Every nerve screamed. The past crashed into the present like waves against rocks. John fell to his knees beside her, his breath stuck in his throat. "I never! Just help her!" Mary yelled at him, raw anger slicing through her voice. It wasn't just anger. It was a fire ignited by years of hurt. But then Sarah let out a soft laugh, a breathy sound that echoed with disbelief. "You don't even know, do you?" The words hit John like a punch. He leaned closer, heart racing. "Know what?" "About me," she struggled, eyes fluttering, fading in and out. "About us. The secrets. Behind the smiles." John felt the world tilt. A revelation, something huge was about to unfold, but the air was thick with uncertainty. Suddenly, the journalist was back, lens flickering like a vulture, keen to feast on the unfolding chaos. As more people crowded around them, the reality of the moment began to seep through the confusion. John's past was unraveling before everyone's eyes. The noise amplified, a storm of voices questioning, demanding, revealing more than just Sarah's injuries. They were straying into dangerous territory, into secrets, embedded deep roots that John couldn't sever. The shadows loomed larger, tightening around him, pressing down harder than ever before. Everything he thought he knew about himself was fracturing. The facade, the perfect billionaire life, was teetering on the edge of collapse. And Mary, holding her sister's hand, stared into John's eyes with a question that loomed larger than any camera flash. "What did you do?" His heart hammered in silence. The world around them shifted. What would happen next? Would he confess the truth? Or would he retreat into the lie that had defined him? Answers dangled like precarious stones above a dark abyss. John's heart hammered as he knelt beside Sarah, fear amplifying the chaos around them. Mary held her sister's hand tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. The crowd hovered, faces contorted with worry and fear, whispers fluttering like anxious birds. "Just hold on, Sarah," John pleaded. "Help is coming. You're going to be okay." But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. The boy he had betrayed needed help. And here was Sarah, bleeding and vulnerable. "I don't think..." Sarah's voice cracked, an echo of the pain pulsing through the air. Suddenly, the crowd gasped. A man pushed through, frantic and wild-eyed. It was Jack, a stranger John had crossed paths with years ago. Someone from a world long buried beneath his piles of success. John recognized him immediately. "Move aside," Jack shouted. He knelt near Sarah, then froze, recognizing Mary. "What's happening? Just help her," Mary cried, desperation lacing her words. But before Jack could answer, a sickening crack echoed around them. Like thunder, a figure emerged from the alley, silhouetted against the flickering streetlights. It was the same man from before. The one who revealed the whirlwind of pain John had tried to forget. "John," the man taunted, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Didn't think you'd come back to watch the chaos unfold." The air thickened. People whispered, recoiling at his presence. "What do you want?" John shouted, his voice raw. "Just to remind you of the family you abandoned. Look around, John. Everything you've built is crumbling." He sneered, pointing toward Sarah. "And now everyone can see the wreckage you've created." "No, that's not true," John gasped, grappling with the weight of his past choices. But the man didn't stop. "You think this is just about money, about success?" "You left them. Look where it got you." A collective shudder passed through the crowd. They were all witnessing the unraveling of a facade. "You're just scared," the man continued, stepping closer. "Scared that you can't save them. Scared that you can't save yourself." The camera flashes intensified, capturing every moment as panic washed over the gathering like a wave. John felt the icy grip of the moment settle deeper into his bones. "Stop!" Mary screamed, standing suddenly. Voice strong, yet trembling with emotion. "This isn't how it ends!" The words sparked a shift. John's mind raced, every second blurring into the next. Suddenly, all the truths he'd hidden were laid bare, everything hanging in the balance. Amid the tension, Jack fumbled for his phone, shouting into it, "Someone, call an ambulance! Hurry!" But just as hope seemed to shimmer on the horizon, another piercing scream shattered the air. The crowd turned, a wave of fear crashing down as another young girl appeared from the alley, terror etched on her face. "She's gone!" she screeched, eyes wide, darting toward John. "She took her! We have to hide!" "Who took who?" John shouted, suddenly alarmed. The girl looked around, frantically scanning the crowd. The sooner he could piece this together, the easier it would be to keep everyone safe. "The lady? The one with the hat?" she cried, pointing into the dark. "She said we shouldn't tell you." Everyone trembled. The crowd murmured, confusion morphing into fear. "What lady?" Mary's voice was soft, laced with disbelief. "That lady over there!" The girl pointed again, trembling. John turned, eyes landing on the shadow across the street. An indistinct figure dressed in dark clothing, staring back. And then, in that moment, recognition struck him. His heart dropped. "No, it can't be," he murmured, barely audible. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face, but it wasn't the one he expected. It was someone from his past, someone he never thought he'd see again. Charlotte. The girl he thought was gone forever, twisted into his memories like a dream. But she was alive, and somehow here. Every emotion crashed over him like a tidal wave, drowning out everything else. "You?" he breathed. "What are you doing here?" The world spun. Everything shifted. The implications rippled through his mind, a storm brewing, blurring the lines between guilt and truth. Behind him, Sarah groaned, dragging him back to reality. She knows something. You have to listen to her." All heads turned. Suddenly, everyone felt the weight of unanswered questions. The intrigued crowd had shifted to a tense silence, hanging on the edge of revelation. "Charlotte," John whispered, the truth clawing at his throat. "Why are you here?" But her eyes had hardened. A different kind of pain reflected back at him as she stepped even closer, shadows clinging to her figure. "Because it's time to reveal why you lost everyone that mattered," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. Pierre crackled with tension. "What do you mean?" he asked, dread pooling in the pit of his stomach. "Because I'm the reason." She paused, the weight of her confession suffocating them all. "I'm the reason Sarah's in trouble." The truth hung like a guillotine blade, ready to drop. John felt the ground beneath him shift, crumbling in a way he never anticipated. Families, betrayals, secrets, everything twisted tighter. This was more than just a confrontation. Everything he thought he knew was thrown into chaos. What would happen next? Would the truth ultimately redeem him, or consume everyone in its wake? John felt the air crackle with tension. Charlotte's confession hung above them like a storm cloud, an undeniable weight, and John's heart raced in his chest, struggling to process the gravity of her words. "What do you mean? You're the reason Sarah's in trouble," he stammered, desperation clawing at his throat. I didn't want this," Charlotte said, her voice shaking. "It was never supposed to happen like this." The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes darting like fireflies, grasping for clarity in the chaos. Mary's grip on Sarah's hand tightened, an anchor in a tempest. "What did you do?" she demanded, a mix of fear and fury churning in her belly. "I made a deal," Charlotte said, pain etched in every word. "To keep Sarah safe, to save her from him." "Who?" John pressed, his voice rising, betraying the storm brewing inside him. "Who's coming after her?" Charlotte hesitated, her eyes darting to the figure lurking in the shadows. The man who had been baiting John with memories of betrayal. "It's Jordan! He found out! He wants revenge!" The name hit like a punch. Jordan, the one who had been hiding in plain sight all along. "No, it can't be true! He's gone!" John's head spun. "I thought we were done with him!" But Charlotte shook her head slowly. "He's been waiting, John." Waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Just then, the crowd gasped in unison, the journalist's camera flashing like a predator's eyes, snapping every moment of panic and revelation. John felt the world around him spin. Everything he relied on, wealth, power, reputation, was suddenly irrelevant. "Get away from her!" John shouted, stepping protectively in front of Mary and Sarah. But the weight of uncertainty loomed, shimmering with impending chaos. "Enough!" Jordan's voice boomed from the shadows, cutting through the noise with a chilling authority. The crowd parted, revealing him, a monstrous silhouette, eyes ablaze, the very embodiment of John's worst fears. "Why did you bring her here?" he sneered, a grin twisting his face, taunting. "You're such a fool, John." "You really thought you could escape your past?" The crowd recoiled, whispers of disbelief swallowing the air. John fought through the swirling dread that threatened to drown him. "Don't you see?" Jordan continued, stepping closer. "This is all part of the game. The stakes are higher now." "What do you want?" John's voice trembled, all bravado stripped away. He was exposed. A glint of malice danced in Jordan's eyes. "Just a chance to remind you what happens when you turn your back on your family." He motioned towards Sarah, bleeding on the pavement, and the anger surged within John like molten lava. "Enough!" Mary screamed, stepping forward, shaking with adrenaline. "You're a monster!" Jordan's laugh sliced through the night. "Ha ha! That's rich, coming from you, the one who's chosen silence over truth." In a sudden burst of motion, everything erupted. Jordan lunged forward, and the moment fractured like glass. "Run!" John shouted, grabbing Mary and shoving her back toward the SUV. But before they could escape, something strange happened. An explosion erupted behind them. A flash of blinding light and a deafening roar that swallowed the night. The ground shook and the crowd swayed, collectively gasping. John felt the heat lick at his back as a wave of panic pulled him forward. Behind him, a plume of smoke billowed into the air, obscuring the figure of Charlotte. Then Sarah's cry. "No!" John shouted, instinctively reaching for Mary. But the chaos became a whirlwind. When the dust settled, everyone fell silent. An unsettling quiet blanketed the street. Charlotte was gone. Where did she go? John's voice trembled, an icy dread sinking into his bones. But Jordan only grinned, a ghastly smile that painted his face with malice. Didn't you see, John? I told you. It's better this way. The past doesn't just fade away. It comes back stronger. The crowd murmured, a mixture of shock and disbelief webbing through their expressions. And in that moment, everything John believed about family, loyalty, and safety shattered into a million pieces. With Charlotte's disappearance echoing in his ears, John stood frozen, staring into the abyss of the unknown, breathless. What had happened? Was it revenge? Or something darker? The truth twisted, fragile and dangerous, and he felt it slip through his fingers like sand. What would he face next? Would he ever get her back? The world felt like it was crumbling, and he was helpless, hovering on the edge of despair. John's heart raced as chaos unfolded around him. The crowd buzzed in confusion, eyes darting between Charlotte's shadowy figure and Sarah's bleeding form. The tension gripped the air tight, like a noose ready to snap. "Where did she go?" he breathed, panic creeping into his voice as Charlotte melted back into the darkness. Mary knelt beside Sarah, her face pale and drawn. "Stay with us," she urged, squeezing her sister's hand. But Sarah's eyes fluttered, pain etched into every crease of her face. I tried to save her," Sarah gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought it would be different." John felt the walls closing in. "You need to focus on getting help," he said, his voice shaky but firm. "Just hold on." Suddenly, the crowd gasped again. Jordan stepped closer, unrelenting, eyes alight with dark satisfaction. "This is all your fault, John. You couldn't protect them then, and you can't save them now." But John's fury ignited, fueled by the sight of Sarah's pain and the weight of his regrets. "Just leave them alone," he shot back, anger coiling tight in his chest. As sirens wailed in the distance, urgency surged through the air. Jack rounded the corner, breathless and frantic. "An ambulance is on the way. We need to get her help, now." Against the chaos, Charlotte's shadow hung, hauntingly distant. "You're too late," Jordan taunted, voice dripping with scorn. "You think they can escape their fate?" Suddenly, a child's voice sliced through the din. "Look at her!" A wide-eyed boy pointed toward the figure in the shadows. The crowd's whispers intensified, eyes darting back to Charlotte. What other secrets lay buried? "Why didn't you tell us?" Mary yelled at Charlotte, rage sizzling in every word. "Why didn't you save her?" "I tried," Charlotte shouted back, her voice cracking under the weight of her truth. "I was scared." John's heart raced at the rawness of her pain, echoing his own. It was familiar. It gripped him tight. The air hung thick with tension still, as the ambulance lights flickered brighter, illuminating the faces of the crowd. John's resolve solidified. "This doesn't end here," he declared, stepping toward Jordan, fists clenched. "You can't control everything. We will fight this together." A palpable silence enveloped them, everyone waiting, breaths held. John's next move could reshape everything. But then, a voice cut through the quiet. the same young girl from earlier, now standing tall. "We will let you win," she shouted, fierce determination lighting her eyes. The crowd erupted into murmurs of agreement. A collective strength swelled in the air, like wildfire igniting within their souls. Jordan's smug expression faltered, the tide shifting around him. "You think you can band together against me?" "Yes," John replied, voice steady. "You've underestimated what we're capable of." The urgency grew as sirens grew closer. The crowd began to rally, hearts beating as one. Hope flickered amid the fear, breaking through like sunlight after a storm. As paramedics arrived, rushing toward Sarah, the weight of everything began to shift. The shadows of doubt started to recede. Just a little. Give them a chance. "Stay strong, Sarah," John urged, feeling a lump form in his throat. "Help is here." Her eyes met his, glimmering with something precious. Trust, perhaps. But as the ambulance doors closed, a chill crept back in. Charlotte's shadow slipped away, and John felt the uncertainty gnaw at him. She had left behind more questions than answers. What would happen next? Would they finally confront the darkness together? As the scene began to morph, John couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Now, it's your turn. If this story moved you, subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive tales we have prepared for you. Smash that like button now. Your support means the world to us. Flood the comments with your reactions. We want to hear your theories about what's going to happen next. And don't wait even a second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Join us on this journey. You are a part of this community.